What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video. And today we're going to be talking about the first ever live action adaptation from a DreamWorks animation film, and that film is called How to Train Your Dragon. Writer-director DeBlois returns once again from having directed the animated trilogy to now direct this film, and this film stars people like Thames, Nico, Nick Frost, and a returning cast member in Gerard, Butler. And before we get too far into this video, if you guys are a fan of up-to-date early reviews, retrospective reviews, live streams, and the occasional vlog, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. But if you're a returning viewer, well, thanks so much for coming by. And this is a movie I was really excited to check out. If you guys have been following the channel, you know that a little bit over a month ago, I actually did a video here on the channel where I watched through these films for the very first time. There are 3 How to Train Your Dragon animated feature-length films, and since then there have been short films as well as TV shows that you can watch. I haven't watched that stuff, but if you saw my video for that, you'll know that I saw the first one when it originally came out, but I definitely don't have that precious connection to it. So rewatching it was in a lot of ways kind of like a first time for me, other than some of the key moments in that film. And I watched the second and third film for the very first time. So when I saw this live action remake was coming, and that it was coming from the same director who did that original trilogy, it also has John Powell returning to do the musical score here, which, let's be honest, the musical score of the How to Train Your Dragon films is top tier. And you have Gerard Butler returning as the character of Stoic, the father of the main character Hiccup. So all of those things definitely had me excited to check this film out, just knowing that there was going to be a creative team who was behind the original films. And I'm, a little bit of a sucker for some of these live action remakes, I won't lie. It's been a bit of a hit or miss thing, specifically from Disney, because you have a lot of different camps. You either have the people who want something to be exactly as it was and they want it to be absolutely accurate to that original film, or you have people who see a film that is shot for shot and are maybe a little bit torn on the notion of whether or not this film should exist, or find it to be a hollow recreation of the original film. And so I don't necessarily think that these live action remakes are something that's going to work for everybody. But without further ado, let's get into what this film is all about for anybody who's not familiar with How to Train Your Dragon, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the film. In the Viking village of Berk, a misfit teen named Hiccup dreams of proving himself to his dragon slaying tribe. But when he injures a powerful dragon called Toothless, he does the unthinkable. He befriends it. As their bond grows, Hiccup learns dragons aren't the enemy they've been told, and with war looming, he must choose between the loyalty to his village or standing up for what's right, even if it means going against his own father. If you've seen the original film, then you know what this film is. This is a shot-for-shot remake. I'll be honest, right out of the gate, this is one of those remakes that is shot-for-shot, and I loved it. I honestly had a really great time with this film, guys. I gotta be honest. And I do think that enjoyment is gonna vary depending on your personal want out of these live action remakes. I look at some of the ones that have come out this year, specifically from Disney. Snow White and Lilo and Stitch. Both films that I enjoyed in different ways. I definitely was not on the hate train for Snow White the way a lot of people were. But when it comes down to Lilo and Stitch, which was more positively received by most people, the one big criticism is that they changed a lot. And I'm of two minds on this. I think if you're going to make a remake, I'm totally for the notion of changing things to give it its own identity and to warrant its existence. So if you are going to change something, make it a big change. Make it something that really gives this version its own identity, and try to make it something that's going to make it better than the original, or have moments where it can expand upon things that maybe the original didn't. Or I'm of the other mindset that if you're going to do it faithful. And in the case of this one, DeBlois, who directed the original 3 films, came in swinging to direct a shot-for-shot remake of his original 2010 animated film. As I mentioned before, I had just kind of rewatched that film. I didn't really watch it super in-depthly when it first came out in 2010. I was at a friend's house when we were throwing it on, and I didn't watch it in theaters. I was right at the tail end of being in high school, so there was a part of me that felt a little too cool for school, if you will, when the film came out. But having just recently seen it and its sequels, I fell in love with it. I found it to be really great. I love the musical score done by John Powell, who I already mentioned, comes back here once again. And I fell in love with the themes that the film has to say, and the visuals, the characters, that bond between Hiccup and Toothless that builds throughout the course of the film. And so with that said, I'm kind of like a newer fan for the franchise, but by no means is the original film an overly precious one to me, the same way a lot of the Disney films have been that have gotten live action adaptations that I grew up with from a very young age. So with all that said, going into this film, I was just looking for something that was going to feel like it honored the original. And I think having the director of the original film come in to direct this film and write it ultimately made this film turn out to be exactly a carbon copy of the original film, And I honestly mean that in the best possible way. I think that Dean DeBlois obviously wanted to be able to bring this to life in a new way for a new generation, for a new group of individuals, and maybe even for some adults who don't like watching cartoons as much outside of something with their kids. And maybe this is a great way to kind of introduce these characters, stories, and themes to a new audience. And I think when you look at a film like this, it's hard to argue against the fact that it's done well. The costume design, the set design, the CGI throughout the course of the film, the look of the film, everything about it is honoring the original film in design of the characters and in design of their attire, in design of the dragons, and it still has a nice balance of being live action, but leaning into the fact that this is an adaptation of a cartoon, so there is a bit of a cartoony look to some of the dragons, but never in a way that feels too cartoony, but it still feels true to the designs of that original series. And I think Dean DeBlois clearly had a vision for making a film that is exactly like the one he made. And I think really, again, your enjoyment is going to vary, because I think if you're going into this film looking for surprise, looking for new, looking for that thing that warrants its existence outside of just getting a true to form live action adaptation of the original as it is, then you may be disappointed. But for me, I think I can appreciate the fact that Dean DeBlois, who directed the original film, was able to come back to the franchise and direct a film in live action that is absolutely honoring what his original film did, and in a lot of ways feels like a great companion piece to that original film. It kind of made me want to watch the original one again, but it also made me kind of excited to maybe watch this one again in the future. A lot of times with these live action remakes, they tend to be enjoyable enough at times, or they tend to be okay, or they kind of lean on nostalgia, but they all, more often than not, make you want to go back and watch the original. And while this film definitely had that feeling for me, I can't lie, I also want to see this new live action one again, and I kind of want to see the sequels done in this live action. And I think a lot of that has to do with not only the fact that this is shot for shot, not only the fact that it honors that original story, not only the fact that you have the same director and you have the same musical score and all those elements that work together to make this feel like it truly honors the original, but also because I think the new cast here is really great. Mason Thames steps into the shoes of Hiccup, and I really enjoyed him in this role. I thought he was a really likable character. At times it does feel like he's putting on a little bit of Jay Baruchel for, you know, definitely the continuity of feeling in line with the character. But as the movie played out, I found he really kind of found his own footing in this role. And while the film definitely leans into all the same dialogue and camera angles and certain mannerisms that are specific to the animated version, I think that he did a great job of adapting that character. Another one is definitely going to be the character of Astrid, that's gotten so much controversy online, who this time around is played by Nico Parker. And there's been so much controversy online because of the fact that she is number one, of color, and she is not blonde. And so while there has been a mixed bag of prejudice comments, there's definitely been a lot of people who just wish that they had kind of stepped more true to the original visually. But despite that, when it comes down to how the character is portrayed, I think Nico Parker did a great job here. She felt like the character of Astrid. I never didn't believe her as the character of Astrid. She pulled me in from beginning to end, and I felt like that camaraderie and that kind of, you know, rough patch that both Hiccup and Astrid kind of have in the story, where they don't really connect all that much. I thought that that was all really believable, and all of that is thanks to Mason Thames and Nico Parker. I thought they were great in the roles, and then having Gerard Butler return as the character of Stoic, the father of Hiccup, the leader of this Viking tribe on the Isle of Berk, I thought he was great. I thought he just stepped right back into the role the same way that he did in the first two films. I thought that he was very much a welcome piece of the puzzle, and it was part of what made the film feel so homey, if you will. It very much felt like a remake that was truly trying to showcase love and admiration for the source material. And so, you know, I've already said it, but I'll say it one last time. I truly think your enjoyment of this film is going to be dependent upon what you want out of this film. If you are looking for a film that honors that original How to Train Your Dragon film, this movie's it. If you're looking for a film that's going to make you feel something different, give you different story beats, then you'll probably be disappointed. But I don't necessarily know that that's the mindset, in my personal opinion, to walk into this remake with. I think it's just dependent on your personal taste. But for me, when I see a live action remake like this that's made so well in terms of performances, in terms of costume design, in terms of set design, in terms of CGI, in terms of overall feel, in terms of all the story beats you want to see that are honored and kept into the story, when it comes down to the themes that are tackled, and the fact that while this film is, I would say, like 98-99% like shot for shot, there are a couple little elements I thought they expanded upon that made it a little bit more likable and a little bit more enjoyable in this film. Not to say that I would say it's necessarily better than the original film, but I think it's a really great companion piece, and I think a lot of that really has to go down to the director, Dean DeBlois. I think that because he came back it feels like it's cohesive with the rest of the franchise. You can tell he has a vision for what this world is, not only in this remake, but in all the sequels he did. And I think that this film slides right into those movies he's already made for this franchise and feels like, you know, not one of those remakes where it feels like there's a different creator and different people who are working on it that just feels disjointed from the franchise. This one feels in line. It feels connected to what's come before. And so again, I've seen already some mixed bag reviews online from certain people, specifically mentioning the fact that it's just the same movie, just done in live action. But I do think that we've had certain movies that have done that aren't as good, that don't have the feels, that don't have the excitement. I think this film has that, and I think the live action element definitely adds to a lot of the action being really cool. There's a lot of spectacle in this film, and I think that John Powell score very much adds to these moments. So if I had to lean into any gripes, I would say that, you know, like the side character, that, you know, like Astrid and the other characters, at times I don't think are as developed as Hiccup, especially as we get to the end and they all are like riding on dragons and stuff. I felt that with the first film as well when I first watched it, but the rest of the film, even for the original, with Hiccup and Toothless and figuring out their relationship and him like learning how to deal with dragons and you know, father-son like antagonistic kind of relationship between Stoic and Hiccup, while it is all the same beats from the original film, it's executed well. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to reviewing film, when it comes down to rating film, in my personal opinion, I try to always say, what is the vision? What was the creator's vision here? Did they execute on the vision? And it's clear to me they did. The vision was to make a true to form live action adaptation that in no way, shape, or form can ever be criticized for not being exactly like the original film. But it definitely can be, you know, criticized for maybe just being like, why did we make this if it's exactly like the original film? But I can't deny that what was made was entertaining. And I actually got to see this film with my buddy Rashad of Rashad G Reviews, who had seen the film back in the day but didn't remember it at all. So this was kind of a first time watch for him. And when the movie was over, he really enjoyed it. And I mentioned I felt like this would probably be a good entryway in for people who aren't really familiar with the original films, or maybe don't watch cartoons, and maybe this is kind of be like their first time seeing the story, because it's still true to that original thing. It doesn't change anything that's drastic in any way, shape, or form. And he felt the same way. He felt like, yeah, you know, like I never saw those other movies, never saw the sequel. I don't really remember the first one. This kind of felt new to me. So there was surprise, there was shock, there was cool moments, you know? And so that's really cool to hear from somebody else's perspective, because for me, I knew everything that was going to happen. So there isn't necessarily surprise and shock. But for me, I wasn't watching it for surprise and shock. I was watching it instead for an adaptation that's true to its original thing. It made me feel what that original thing did. And I got to be honest, I think that this film really knocked it out of the park. And while I don't necessarily know that we need a bombardment of live action remakes, I genuinely would say that this is how you do a live action remake if you're going to do one. And I think that DreamWorks may have, you know, a really big hit on their hands here. I don't necessarily want to see their full catalog getting remakes, but based on this, I definitely would love to see How to Train Your Dragon 2 and the third film done in live action with this cast, because I do think they did a great job of being these characters and getting me on board for more films in this world. So that's going to be my thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon, the 2025 remake. Let me know down below. Are you planning on checking out this film? If you already saw the film, because I know it's out in a couple countries already overseas, leave some comments down below. Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? Do you think it was too true to the original film? Would you have liked to have seen more changes, or do you think it just didn't need to exist altogether? Whatever the case may be, leave any comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.